Good morning, everybody. Thank you and welcome for coming out in this weather for this event. CTA really appreciates it. Before I get started with my remarks, I'm Dorvel Carter, President of the Chicago Transit Authority. I want to acknowledge some distinguished guests that we have with us here today. Senator Durbin, Alderman Quigley, Alderman Chakowski, Congressman. I know that. Congressman Chakowski, Alderman Tunney, and Alderman Kappelman. There you are, Alderman Kappelman, who have joined us today and who I can tell you without all of your support, this project would not be here moving forward as it is today. So thank you all for being here. As many of you know, CTA is essential to Chicago. The Red Line is the backbone of our city and the busiest rail line on CTA. It runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and provides critical transportation to essential workers, students, and more. Its importance to our city is why we are making the historic level of investments to improve the Red Line. This includes transformational projects like RPM, as well as critical initiatives like the Red Line Extension Project, which will extend the line to 130th Street on the south side. We're here today for two purposes. First, to commemorate the new red-purple bypass, the first major customer improvement to be delivered to our riders as part of the RPM project. And secondly, to break ground on another equally transformational phase of the RPM project, rebuilding a more than 100-year-old red and purple elevated track structure north of Belmont. The bypass has removed a significant obstacle to our ability to provide quality rail service by building a new bypass bridge for northbound Brown Line trains. We have effectively reconfigured a 115-year-old rail junction where the red, purple, and Brown Line train traffic intersected. With the new bypass, our train no longer have to stop and wait for other trains to cross through the junction north of Belmont. This allows us to move trains more efficiently and provide more reliable service while reducing delays and overcrowding on trains and platforms. It is also, very importantly, increasing our capacity to add additional service during the busiest travel periods. Already, more than 10,000 Brown Line trains and more than 500,000 people have traveled on the bypass. While the bypass benefits are many, there's a more critical work to be done here in the near future. Behind me, you can see red and purple lines. These were originally built by the Northwestern Elevated Railroad and opened in 1900. At more than 100 years old, this elevated track has served multiple generations, and now it is time to rebuild for the next 100 years. Continuing to operate a busy rail line through this outdated infrastructure results in high maintenance costs and the need for frequent repairs that disrupt service and slow travel. Today, we break ground on this important next phase of the work. Over the next 3 years, we will rebuild these tracks between Belmont and the south end to roughly West Cornelia Avenue on the north end. When this work is completed in 2025, the new track will be straightened and modern, providing quicker, more comfortable ride. As with all phases of the RPM project, we will provide train service throughout the construction period. Projects like RPM strengthen our city by providing reliable transportation. And while providing the best service to our customers is always our priority, the RPM project has also been more than about getting people from point A to point B. RPM is also about investing in communities too. We are creating training opportunities and jobs for Chicagoans across the city, in part by focusing our efforts in the lowest income zip codes in the metropolitan area. So far, on this project alone, more than 1,300 jobs have been created and more than $34 million in wages paid to residents of this city. Secondly, we have worked hard to increase our participation in this project by small businesses designated as disadvantaged business enterprises. To date, more than 70 small businesses have been awarded nearly $200 million in contracts for RPM. And let's remember, this project still has 3 more years to go, which means there will be more opportunities for individuals and workers and small businesses. Today marks an historic day for our city and for our people. It is the beginning of a new and better Chicago, and I want to thank you all for attending today. And with that, I will bring up Alderman Tom Tunney to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. On a typical Chicago winter morning, the snowplows are out, and the mayor is here as our federal partners are here. And obviously, the CTA is running. What I do want to say is, in this backdrop here, speaking of small businesses, Mayor, the businesses that surround these stations, are critical to neighborhood economic development. So as this improvements happen along the red line, and God bless, I was telling the mayor, down to 130th on the south, this will create economic engines in neighborhoods that abut and have the stations there. So as Dorvel said, 100 years in the making and 100 years as we move forward. But as a small business guy that's been on this corner for, I think, 42 years, I've seen a lot. And it first started with our federal partners on the Brown Line reconstruction, and now with the Red Purple Line, we have the state-of-the-art transportation to really move our north side and south side forward. If we don't have good public transit, we don't have a local economy, a city economy. As a person who takes the train to and from downtown and to Southport and in my neighborhood also, I'm a frequent traveler on CTA, and I know our ridership is down, but our ridership is coming back, and we have to continue to invest not only to reduce our carbon footprint, but to really be the economic engine for our neighborhoods. So I know that this project was signed off, I believe, on one of the final days of the Obama administration. So we want to thank our former president, and of course our federal partners that are sitting in the front row. We're there too to make this happen. These dollars are competitive and sought after, and Chicago was a major beneficiary of the Red Purple Line, and I see as we're moving more to the south extension, it would be impossible without our congresspeople and our senator and our mayor, of course, to really advocate that public transit is the future of cities. With that, I want to introduce our leader, my mayor and my friend, Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Mayor.
Well, good morning, everyone. Feels like not too long ago we were standing in this exact same spot. Also a little cold that day, as I remember, but it's great to be here to both mark the completion of one phase of this work and the start of a new phase. And I want to pick up on the comments that both Dorvel and Tom made. We don't get to this place without partnership, and particularly our federal partners. Congressman Schakowsky, Congressman Quigley, and of course our great senior senator, Dick Durbin. Partnership is what makes this happen. And look, I'm sure a lot of mayors and a lot of cities will say different things about their relationship with their federal delegation, but I would put to the test anybody to say that they've got a better federal delegation than we do. Anytime that we need something, they are there. Not only us asking them, but being proactive and saying, Mayor, how can I help? That is exactly what we need, that kind of back and forth and partnership. And I just want to thank you all personally and all the other members of the delegation for the work that they do every day, particularly around infrastructure and transportation work. It is the lifeblood of our city. Let me also just highlight a few of the other points that Dorvel covered. I want to also thank the many construction workers, the laborers, the construction companies, the CTA representatives, and the workers on this RPM team who have been so instrumental in making today possible. Again, you can't do it without the workers. And I see many of them here in attendance, and I just want to say thank you for all your hard work all year round in good weather and in a lot of bad weather to get this done. The multi-phase RPM project, which is the largest reconstruction project, I believe, in CTA history, truly represents what we mean when we say we are going to invest in the lives of our residents through the power of infrastructure. Not only will it modernize and replace 100-year-old rail structures and stations, but will also do so in a way that improves rail service reliably, with comfort and convenience for CTA customers. In 2019, the CTA began phase 1 of this project, which leverages $2.1 billion and includes 4 new and 100% accessible, let me emphasize that, 100% accessible red line stations to replace age stations at Lawrence, Argyle, Berwyn, and Bryn Mawr. And let me just say another thing that we ought to be proud of about the CTA. We are doing everything that we can to make sure that every single one of our stations is accessible. President Carter and his team have been leaders on this, not only here in the city, but nationally. And the infrastructure bill, which he worked on with our other senator, Senator Duckworth, around accessibility, has now become the standard for the nation as part of the bipartisan infrastructure bill. So thank you, President Carter. This new project will also include the reconstruction of adjacent track structure so that riders can enjoy a smoother ride, a new rail signal system from Howard to Belmont, and a new modern bypass north of Belmont Station where red, brown, and purple line trains connect. Today, we're here to celebrate the completion of the bypass, which began service at the end of last year and serves as the first major improvement for CTA customers as part of the RPM project. The red-purple bypass, which is the first new permanent main line track to be added to the CTA since the Orange Line opened in 1993, eliminates a 114-year-old junction that became a total choke point for CTA service. This choke point has understandably frustrated many customers and riders, but with this new bypass in place, northbound brown line trains are carried over north and southbound red and purple line tracks, allowing the CTA to add trains during the busiest commute periods and eliminate capacity restrictions caused by the antiquated rail junction. As Kimball-bound trains and red and purple line trains will no longer have to stop and wait for each other to pass. CTA customers are now able to enjoy quicker, more reliable service. In addition to celebrating the completion of this project, we're also here to announce the upcoming reconstruction of the 100-year-old red and purple line track between Belmont and West Cornelia. This work, which is expected to begin next month and continue through 2024, will not only increase train speeds and improve service reliability and comfort, but implement new closed-deck track structures, which will create a quieter CTA for neighbors and pedestrians, which is a good thing. Chicago has never been and never will be a city that settles for good enough. And that's especially true when it comes to our transit system. It is only fitting that as a world-class city, we have a world-class transportation system, one that connects neighborhoods and removes barriers to access by getting residents and visitors where they need to go on time in a way that is simple and affordable. And this is the legacy and history of the CTA. Let me just end by saying this. The CTA it's been the only train station that has operated at full schedule throughout the pandemic. And that is done and possible because of the work of leadership, but it's also done and possible because of the work of the workers. I want to thank all of the CTA workers who have been on the front lines through this pandemic, who have endured so many challenges, but I'm happy to say, working collaboratively, we've been able to push forward, protect you and keep you safe in the workplace, and make sure that we're listening to what your concerns are. We will continue to prioritize safety, not only rail safety, but obviously safety of workers and customers in the stations. But the CTA has never stopped, will never stop, and I'm very, very proud of the accomplishments of the team under President Dorvel Carter's leadership. I'm proud of the work that we've done in hiring and making sure that we're prioritizing opening up opportunities for local residents. But this is a great and important day. And the thing that I'm most looking forward to, aside from this project, and we talked about it briefly, is finally extending the red line to the south side of Chicago and making sure residents on the far south reaches of our city have access to good, reliable transportation to get to and from jobs, to get to work, and other entertainment, so they feel this level of connection to our city. So with that, I welcome up our senior senator, Senator Durbin, to say a few words. Senator.
Mayor Lightfoot, thank you for the kind words on behalf of our delegation. Thank you to Alderman Tunney. This is, of course, this ward is my Chicago home. Loretta and I value this very much. We set standards for where we were going to live in Chicago, to be around wonderful people, and there are a lot of places we could have chosen. And secondly, to make sure we were never too far from Tom Tunney's cinnamon rolls, and that's why we chose this ward. So Tom, I wish you many happy years ahead in providing challenges to my waistline. And I want to recognize Alderman Kappelman and Jan Schakowsky. Jan and I have been engaged in these battles for how many years now, Jan? Many. And Mike Quigley, 13 years serving in the House and representing this area. I can tell you that we are here today because of a debate that took place 10 years ago on Capitol Hill. And had that debate not turned out the right way, we wouldn't be here today. And here was the debate. The federal policy on transit until 10 years ago was only to invest money in new starts. Dorvel Carter knows this story. Ms. Brookins from the FTA knows it as well. New starts. And so those of us from communities and cities that have been around for a while were saying, what about us? You know, this isn't a new start, but it's just as integral and important to public transportation as any new idea that anyone comes up with. We had to win that battle and win that debate 10 years ago in something called core capacity. And because we were successful in winning that debate, we got in the running for money just like the money we're announcing today. And that money has been invested in cities like Chicago and New York and Boston and all around the nation. Now there's more to the story, and those of us in Congress can tell you. We may not have a great record of achievement in terms of numbers of pieces of legislation in the last year and a half, but I can tell you one of the things that we did on a bipartisan basis was to pass an infrastructure bill, the largest infrastructure bill in the history of the United States, more than $1 trillion. Mr. Carter can tell you as well that that means opportunities for this project and for many others just like it. Then we came through with a relief package, the rescue plan that President Biden proposed. I have to tell you in all candor, it was not bipartisan. We did it on our side of the aisle and passed it. And included in that rescue package was an opportunity for the CTA, for example, to come to the federal government and say, we don't want to shut down during the pandemic. We want to make sure our people are working. We want to make sure that public transit is always there, always reliable. And we made that investment. I think it was $2 billion, was it not, for the CTA. That wasn't the end of the story by any means. She received credit earlier from the mayor. She deserves that and more. My colleague, Senator Tammy Duckworth. She has made it her passion, not only for the veterans of this country, but also for the disabled of this country to speak up for them more clearly than most on Capitol Hill. And she had more to do with including provisions in this infrastructure bill that makes sure that systems like this one can be accessible to all Americans. We've already kicked off some construction on the Red Line that's going to be consistent with that. There is more to follow. That isn't the last part of the story. There's also going to be some $4 billion in competitive grants that's going to be available to transit systems and train operations all around the United States. I will tell you, we're going to come into this with elbows flying. We're going to make sure that every single federal dollar that we can bring back home to Chicago and Illinois is here. creating good jobs, creating the infrastructure for the future. So that's what this is all about. This is a perfect Chicago January morning, and it's my honor to be with you and to serve with my delegation and to help you in Washington all that I can. And now it is my honor to represent or to present my colleague Mike Quigley. Mike.
Thank you, Senator. I think Illinois takes it for granted that it has a senior senator with as much influence and power as we do with Senator Durbin. It's extraordinary. It makes all of our jobs in D.C. a lot easier. But, you know, he's been there a while. We assume that's always the case. But I'll tell you, I don't think this Red Line project money that started in the last month of the Obama administration would have happened without his efforts. It is great to be here with all of you. By the way, we're in a warm tent. And to the workers, I know it's a lot colder out there. Thank you. Appreciate your work. It's great to be here with my friends, the aldermen, Kappelman and Tunney. And I appreciate the mayor's comments about the delegation. I will say this, I've been in this business since '82, one way or another. This administration that she heads has been very easy to work with, and we appreciate that. And President Carter is here. He testified before my committee last year. He does an extremely good job advocating and informing. I am the second-ranking Democrat on the Transportation, Housing, Urban Development Subcommittee in the House. We fund every transit housing dollar in the country. And in the next term, unfortunately, we're losing my friend, Mr. Price. I'm going to be the chair of that committee because we will retain the House. And we're going to have a lot more events like this. I'm going to introduce Jan Schakowsky in a second, but I want to do this. Here's today's message. Get used to these kind of things, right? Most of you, and a lot of the same folks from the press were with us in Des Plaines just about a week ago, talking about the bridge project there and the billions nationally they're going to go toward this end. Illinois has over, what, 2,300 bridges that are deficient? Get used to it. The EV, the electric vehicle centers that are going to be put up all over our country, help address climate change, put electricians and others to work in mass. Get used to that. You're going to meet us along the river. You're going to meet us on our bridges. You're going to meet us on the 606. You're going to meet us on the lakefront. You're going to meet us as we address the digital divide. And I know Senator Duckworth was very involved in getting the infrastructure bill, the water systems projects, to replace lead pipe and get water mains to everyone, so everyone has access to safe drinking water, and we have waste disposal that's effective. And this is, as you know, long overdue. You see the civilian grades, that engineer grades that we get, C's and D's and F's. That's been there a long time. So you talk about the Biden agenda. In our lifetime, in my lifetime, every president has wanted to do the big infrastructure bill. The Biden administration got it done, right? First time. Plus, let's think about this notion in history. FDR, in the worst of the Depression, did infrastructure that we still use today. And he didn't just rebuild the existing infrastructure, he electrified rural America and changed the world for them. When Eisenhower came back from the Second World War, he didn't just rebuild the infrastructure, he built the interstate highway system. So yeah, you're gonna see us at the typical roads and bridges and transit, and that's what we should do. But you're also going to see us build infrastructure for the next century, not just the last century. Also important. So thank you so much for being here. And again, get used to this. And we, the best idea of the day, Mr. Carter, the tent. If you can make this sucker mobile, that would be really helpful because we may need it for a while. But as you understand this project, appreciate how far south it goes and how far it continues to need to go farther south. But currently, this project that we're looking at right here is going to make getting to Howard and Evanston a lot easier, quicker, and safer. So who better to bring up to talk about that? Our good friend and extraordinary advocate, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky.
Well, it's such a joy to be here today on this great Chicago day. You know, our Alderman Tunney said a typical Chicago day. I want to tell you, though, those of us who spend time in Washington, that city will be totally shut down if we were there. But Chicago is moving. And what we see today, because of this tremendous partnership that the mayor talked about, because of the great work of our senator and our delegation from Illinois, including Senator Duckworth, we are all together. Chicago is continuing to move forward. It is so exciting, and thank you to all the both aldermen that are here. I want to give you a statistic that honestly my staff gave to me. It sounds extraordinary, and our CTA president can tell me if it doesn't sound right. But it says that the new bypass will save riders 500 million travel hours each year. Why? Because it will enable CTA to run 8 more Red Line trains per hour during rush hours. So we are making travel more accessible to people. People are out today. They're on the roads. They're on our transportation system, getting to work. And aside from the bypass, which did start in November, today is the kickoff for the new tracks. And I too want to thank all the workers that are here making this a reality. 100 years old, time to have our new track and more efficiency. And I also really want to highlight the idea of accessibility. That's been a challenge at the CTA, making sure that everyone is able to access our wonderful transportation system, and accessibility is such an important factor. We do have to thank our Senator Tammy Duckworth for making sure that this is now the standard for the rest of the country and to make it happen here in Illinois. So we're getting Chicago really moving in the right direction, and I am so proud to be part of this effort. Thanks to all the partners that make this happen.
I'm told we're doing Q&A, and then we're going to do our shovel shots. So,
thanks a lot, Mayor. We're going to kick it off with Craig Wall from ABC 7.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
First of all, can you update us on the investigation into Melissa Ortega's murder? And we've got a follow-up for that, if you would.
Sure. Well, first of all, let me publicly extend my condolences to Melissa Ortega's family. Losing a child under any circumstances is horrifying, and the circumstances in which his family lost this precious, precious child is almost unspeakable. I'm pleased to say that, as it always does, the Little Village community has really stood up and rallied to wrap its arms around the Ortega family and really help with every conceivable need. My team in the mayor's office and across city government has also provided supports, and we will continue to do so. I've been following the investigation very closely. I can't get into a lot of specific details, but I can tell you that the detectives have been literally working 24/7, that there are some promising leads, and I hope that we'll have a more substantive announcement soon. The superintendent will, I think, be addressing the public later today, and he may be able to provide even more updates at that time.
Some of your critics might say, Chicago is focusing on the wrong things in fighting crime, pointing in particular to the effort to go after, gang forfeitures. What is being done now to make a difference for people who are saying, like, there's no hope out there that this is ever going to end?
Well, you always have to have hope. And as a person of faith, I always have hope. And we have made progress. But, the gangs and the guns are the primary drivers of our violence in the city. And the notion that we would not use every tool to go after them, and particularly to take away the profit motive, I think what you're going to find is this was an inter-gang conflict. But we've got to make sure that we send a very clear message and strike very hard blows against every gang member in our city. Obviously, this little girl was not the intended target, but the fact that they are reckless and operate without any regard for the sanctity of human life, we have got to stand up and stop them and use every tool at our disposal to do so. We continue to be very strong and aggressive in our gang investigations and making sure that we're taking guns out of their hands, taking drugs out of their hands. But we also have to go after the profit motive. You're alluding to our Victims' Justice Ordinance, which specifically is focused on doing just that. Going before a court, putting together evidence that identifies gang leaders, the hierarchy, the shot callers, who are wreaking havoc in our neighborhoods. We need to send a very clear message on that. We had, I think, a productive subject matter hearing on this issue on Friday, and I look forward to moving the ordinance forward for a vote and its passage so that we can then use this as another tool in our fight against gangs. We cannot rest while we see this increase in violence, and a lot of it is driven by gangs and illegal guns. Well, I think what it will do is this. If we go after the profit motive, we're going to reduce the incentive for the gangs. We're going to reduce their ability to buy illegal guns and use their profits to continue to further their business. It's an absolute necessity in our fight against gangs. And I think, let me just add this. You talk about lack of hope. Well, the cynicism that says, well, why should we even try another tool, that is the thing that undermines hope. We've got to demonstrate to our residents, and particularly those residents in our neighborhoods that are under siege, that we are there by their side. We're doing everything that we can. We are not going to leave any stone unturned until we bring peace to these neighborhoods.
Thanks a lot, Mayor. That's a wrap. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.